Hi there, Good Word fam. It's Tisha Lewis with the Good Word, and we are inside the Hart Senate building. And sitting next to me, a very familiar face, Pastor Lorenzo Sewell. You did the proclamation of blessing at President Trump's inauguration. That prayer has gone viral. And here you are, still hanging out in the district.
Absolutely. You know, we need to do what Dr. King did. He used his spiritual platform for political influence. I think a lot of people forget that Dr. King, he had his doctorate degree in theology, right? So that informed his political prowess. So in order for him to be able to be a spiritual person, he had political influence. And on Monday, we had an opportunity to have a platform that now every American can feel that they can have a dream again.
I read that President Trump asked you personally to pray at his inauguration. What was that moment like? And walk us through how it all came to fruition.
I'll never forget it. Can you imagine a kid born and raised on the east side of Detroit, mentored by murderers, student of the streets? My dad is in prison for murder today. Can you imagine that? And President Trump coming to the hood, right? So you have the hood, and then you have the hood. That's where we are. Women are being openly human trafficked. We have a methadone clinic right next to our church where people by the hundreds are getting federally funded heroin. Technically, that's what's happening. And people, highest human trafficking. Are you kidding me? Highest foreclosures, right? The illiteracy rate. 47% of Detroit is functionally illiterate. That's what's happening in the city of Detroit. And he came to that community to listen. I prayed over him, remember? 30 days later, he received the millimeter miracle. I prayed for his protection on his birthday weekend. 30 days later, millimeter miracle. When I prayed for him, he said at the inauguration, "You'll be there."
Wow.
He's a man of his word.
And you were there. What was that moment like when you stepped on stage? Were you nervous?
Well, I'm talking to God, right? It's like this conversation that we're having right now. If I'm present here with you and I'm conversing with you, I don't worry about who's listening. I don't worry about who's watching, right? Because I can authentically be myself because I'm focused on you and I'm in your presence. So it is. Prayer puts you in the presence of God and you begin to talk to Jesus and you begin to converse with Jesus. And we were talking to Jesus in the context of Dr. King's dream. There's only been 2 times in the history of humanity that a president had his inauguration during King's celebration. Bill Clinton and now our 47th president, President Donald J. Trump. So I felt like God wanted me to pray that dream so that Dr. King's dream can become a reality for those that are living in a nightmare.
What was the conversation that you had with President Trump beforehand? Did he offer any guidance or direction, or did he let you do your thing? And then I know afterwards he said something to you on the stage. What did he say? This
is what I love about working with President Trump. He's never told me, Lorenzo, tone it down. He's never said, you should pray in this way. Where I know that typically I've seen in other political parties, what happens is they say you can't say that name, or you can't do this, or you can't say that. He's always allowed me to be himself. He is the most authentic man that I ever met. He only said it one time, that I would pray at the inauguration. Then obviously he won the election by a landslide. Then 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call to pray at the inauguration. I sent him my prayer, which was a rendition of King's speech. And on Monday, I had an opportunity to pray the dream. And then after, President Trump, as you see, embraced me. And he told me what he said to me so many times: you're special. You're amazing. Thank you for doing that. And First Lady, she gave me a hug, and in the back, George W. Bush, he came up to me, and President Clinton came up to me, and they were so excited. Secretary Hillary Clinton came up to me, and they were thanking me for invoking Dr. Martin Luther King's dream into the prayer.
When you saw that your prayer went viral, were you surprised?
You know, I believe that people are hungry for God. I believe at the end of the day, right, regardless of where your political persuasion is, that people have a God-sized hole in their heart. Everyone's seeking. Some people try to fill that hole with money. Some people try to fill it with power. Some people try to fill it with prestige, right? And Monday was an opportunity for the world to be able to see, this is really what you're looking for. You're looking for me. So it didn't necessarily surprise me that it went viral, so to speak, because it is indicative of the human condition, that we all want a relationship with Jesus.
What about the folks that, you know, the not so nice folks, the trolls online? I'm sure you've read some of the comments. Your take.
Well,
About invoking Dr. King,
Sure.
Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech. Such a powerful and prolific speech that you shared at an historic moment.
Sure. I think people are jealous because they don't know the speech.
Hey, the haters.
I think people just are upset because they don't know it. They have no idea the context of it, right? They don't understand that Dr. King, he literally laid his life down for legislation that we still don't get the benefits and the blessing of as it pertains to HUD. When he was assassinated in April, HUD legislation was passed in August, and we still haven't had an opportunity to have those resources. So people don't understand that a pastor is in a political context to really help them. The same people that are upset are the same people that are either apolitical or ahistorical. So for us, I understand that people perish because of a lack of knowledge, and there are just some people that God allows to hate on you so you can stay humble, so you can be prayerful, and so you can pray for them. I didn't even know who Joy Reid was, right? I was on the news yesterday and somebody was like, oh, she's upset. I was like, I'll pray for her. And we got to keep moving forward because there's always more for us than it is against us.
You've called the Bible a political book. How so?
Well, the entire Bible is a political book. If you take politics out of the Bible, you have no Bible. If you look at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, well, they had relationships with a Pharaoh. If you look at Moses, his relationship with Pharaoh. If you look at Nehemiah, his relationship with Artaxerxes. If you look at Daniel, he served up under 3 different empires, right? Jesus, Pontius Pilate, right? Paul, King Agrippa. If you take politics out of the Bible, then you have no Bible. The Bible is a political book. As a matter of fact, the Bible says the first group of people you should pray for is kings and for those that are in high authority, so we can live an honest and peaceable life unto all godliness and honesty. So God anticipates and expects believers to pray for their political leaders because their heart is in his hand and he can turn it, but he only turns it through our prayers.
For so many people, you are being introduced. Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, the first time they heard you, the first time they saw you was at this inauguration. And now there's an influx of attention and eyes watching you.
Sure.
How are you navigating that?
Well, I just have to be myself, right? And I'm just a person, I'm a kid born and raised on the east side of Detroit, right? And I realized that Jesus is using this moment in order for people to realize even broken crayons still color. Even a stick that's crooked can draw a straight line. That God can use anybody. Really, that's what this is about. This isn't about me. It really, quite frankly, isn't about President Donald Trump only. It's about people, the average, everyday American that's out there saying, God, do you have something for me? Is there something you want for me to do? That's what this whole moment is about, that people would reflect on that.
You share that you come from the east side of Detroit. Your church is in one of the toughest and roughest neighborhoods in Detroit. What's been the congregation's reaction to all of this?
We're praying people, right? And we're people that believe the word of God. So people are feeling like, okay, this is what the Bible teaches. We should be praying for leaders and we should influence politics. But you also have people in the congregation that will never think like I do. I'll vote a straight ticket Republican my whole life. They'll never think that way. They'll always vote Democrat, which that's what church is about. We can think different. We can vote different, but we are all called to love the same.
Have you talked to President Trump since you gave that prayer?
No, I plan on talking to him though before I leave. I'll be here for a few more days.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, the inauguration was Monday. It is Wednesday? It feels like the longest week ever. What have you been doing in the DMV?
Yeah, so right now I am building relationships with senators and with cabinet leaders. I'm building relationships with the House of Representatives. I'll be with Speaker Mike Johnson today. I'll be praying with him. I've written out prayers for those that are in the cabinet because I want to stay present. I want to stay top of mind because it's not about me. It's about the people that I represent. I represent those that are in some of the poorest and hardest hit districts. It's about those that never in a million years would think about politics, but they don't understand that politics affect them every day. I'm representing them so they can be able to see Dr. King's dream come alive.
How would you say the country unites moving forward? This was a very polarizing election cycle and season for many people, and now here we are, and we're on day 2? How would you say the country can unite at this point?
Well, I believe the most important thing is that we all understand we have shared interests, right? I mean, all of us want our families to do well. All of us want our children to be safe. All of us have a desire to make sure that we live in communities whereby we can flourish and grow. We just may see different ways to get there. And I think if we keep the main thing, that's how we do that. Anybody can have partisan politics that don't cause progress. But there is nothing in the history of America that has progressed without some type of compromise. So I do believe that if we focus on keeping the main thing, we'll be able to see the greatest 4 years in the history of our country.
You said that your father is currently incarcerated for murder. Do you have a relationship with him? Are you in communication with him? And did your father see you on stage at the inauguration praying for the President of the United States of America?
You know, the day before I thought about my dad a lot, right? But because his last name is not on my birth certificate, I've not been able to see him. So in the state of Michigan, you have to prove it, right? You can't just say I'm a pastor. Since COVID, you have to actually prove that that's your father, and his name's not on my birth certificate. But now with my new, celebrity,
newfound fame,
I think I got a few people I can call.
Look at God.
I think I got a few friends I can call to get me in.
So you're going to visit your dad?
That's the goal.
Do you think he was watching
I don't
inauguration?
know. That's a good question. We'll find out.
But if he was, and he saw you, what do you think his reaction would be?
I think like every parent, it would be probably expected, right? I think every parent expects that their children will be great. You know, my oldest daughter says she wants to be the president, right? And I tell her, you can be the president. So it wouldn't, I don't think it would surprise him. I think it would be expected, just like every parent would expect the best from their child, so.
Where do you go from here? What's next for you? And, you know, like I said, you are new to so many people and not new to so many people as well.
Sure.
But for the folks who you are new to, who are you and where do you go next from here? I mean, that's a big accomplishment.
Sure.
What's next?
Fighting for the rights of those who don't have a voice. Specifically as it pertains to transportation, housing, education, healing, medical, mental, and dental illnesses. We believe in order to take people out of poverty, we've discovered that you need those 4 components. You need transportation, you need housing, that's the hub. You need education, and that education can lead to employment. It can lead to entrepreneurship. It can lead to hard skills. It can lead to soft skills. So when you think about that education, it falls up under political education as well. But the unseen illnesses of medical, mental, and dental illnesses, THEM, them. My goal is to love them, right? It's not about me. If I love them, then I show him that it's about him. So that's really what this whole newfound fame is about, or this new so-called celebrity is about, is to make sure that people that are the least of these, they get everything they need in the greatest country. Dr. King talked about how the Black Americans, in the first part of his dream, how he talked about being in the symbolic shadow of Abraham Lincoln, and he talked about how 100 years later, how the American Negro, they were living on an island of poverty in an ocean of prosperity. And that still resonates today, right? So we want to make sure that not just Black Americans, but all Americans that would consider themselves minorities, that they can be able to get access to the resources that our country has.
Have you been in touch with Dr. King's family?
I see Dr. Alveda King. She and I were together on Friday and on last Thursday.
And did you tell them you were going to do this?
You know, I had a lot of interviews and I let a lot of people know that I was going to pray this. Now, I didn't know how it would be prayed, right? It's like the conversation we're having now. I can have in my heart where I want to kind of go, but it's got to flow, right? The same thing with that. So I kind of preface people, a lot of networks said I would do that, and then God allowed it to flow the way it did.
Do you feel that they were proud watching this moment?
You know what? I would hope so. I would hope so. That would be my prayer. But at the end of the day, when you talk to God, you're an audience of one, and you know that He's pleased. That's all that matters, right? If you try to please man, you can find yourself missing God.
Let me ask you, you're praying for politicians and the President of the United States. Who prays for you?
Well, I have an army.
Who prays over you?
I have an army, right? First my wife, my children, but I have an army. I have an army of people that are always interceding. They're always praying. They're always believing God that He would use me, knowing that I'm not by myself. Well, none of us are. We're sitting right now in our grandparents' prayer. We're sitting right now in people's prayers. We're present because somebody prayed for us. They had us on their mind. They took the time to pray for
me.
us.
I grew up in the church. I grew up in Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church with Bishop Alfred Owens and Co-Pastor Susie Owens here in D.C. And yes, that was the song that came to my mind when you said that. Let me ask you, you've said that you seem to sit at the intersection of politics and religion. There's news that's coming out. The news cycle obviously is ever changing, but even in the last 24 hours, the elimination of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the federal government. Your take on that?
Well, like I said, I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit. My mother moved us out to a city called Fraser, where I was the only black person, but I didn't know it till I was 17 years old. So as a child, if you would have came to me and said, things are different because you are black, I wouldn't even have understood that. I've been in all white context almost my whole life, and the thing that makes me cringe the most is when somebody says you're the only black person. I just want to be the best person, right? I just want to be the most competent person. And I know people love to politicize that, but you take somebody's dignity away when you say you're in a position, or you may imply, or you could somehow insinuate that you're there because you're the only woman, or you're there. No, I just want to be the best at what I do, right? I just want to be the most competent person. It has nothing to do with my skin color. I'm looking forward to one day live in a nation where we will not be judged
by the color of our skin,
but by the content of our character.
So you're supportive of the removal of DEI in the federal?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I do a lot with this. I train executives on cultural etiquette. There's a difference between maybe never engaging a woman who is in a position of authority. There's a difference between not having the etiquette and to superimpose and make people think that because you don't have that etiquette that you're racist, or because you don't have that etiquette that you're less than, or there needs to be a funding model for that. There doesn't need to be a funding model for that. If you're the best at what you do, think about this for a second. If let's just say I'm a white man who has a position open, it's gonna cost me more money not to hire the best person than if the best person who's of color and just choose not to be with them, and not to hire them because they're of color, or because they're a woman, or because they're Middle Eastern, or because they're Muslim, or because they're gay. Think about this for a second. If my daughter has a terminal illness, God forbid, and the only doctor that can work on her is transgender, what do you think I'm gonna say to my daughter? Oh, you know what? You're gonna have to die, because nobody cares. Now, do we have the history? Of course we do, but we all have history, and we've learned from our history.
Everyone that comes on the Good Word series, we always ask them to leave folks who are watching and also folks who are listening on wherever you get your podcasts. We always ask, what is the good word? What would you say is the good word? It is 2025. We are a couple days removed from you praying a proclamation blessing at the inauguration for the 47th president, Donald J. Trump of the United States of America. What would you say is the good word?
In 2025, Jesus is about to make it come alive. Remember, Ezekiel was in this valley of dry bones, and maybe in your life you have dry bones. Maybe in your life right now you feel like things are not responsive. Maybe in your life right now you would say, I'm in a graveyard, right? God's grace is sufficient for you. In 2025, he's gonna make that thing come alive.
Pastor Lorenzo Sewell, I have a feeling we're gonna be seeing and hearing a lot of you. Please come back to the Good Word. Keep us posted on the latest and greatest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.